Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Hello everyone and welcome to Ask Rob and Rob, where every week you are delivering wonderful questions, so we do our best to deliver you wonderful answers. This week we've got questions in from Jay and Helen, and they are absolutely superb. But before we get to them, let's just give you a quick reminder of how you can get on the show too.
Yep, you can give us a call on 013 808 0035. That's 013 808 0035. Or you can go to propertyhub.net/ask. Either way, all you have to do is leave us a voicemail, ask your question, and in the fullness of time, we'll get back to you. That's what happened with Jay, so let's have a listen to his question.
Hello Rob and Rob, my name's Jay. I just wanted to ask a question because there's so much information that you gave us about how to buy and how to do this, that and the other, but when it comes to actually raising the money and getting the money, do you have any sort of advice or anywhere that you would point people or any sort of tips that you can give people that are generating more funds to be able to go ahead and execute on property? Thanks a lot for what you're doing and look forward to your comments.
Thank you, Jay. It's a really good question, and I could see how you might be confused on the subject because on the one hand, we don't really talk about it too much. It's kind of implicit that you need to have money to invest in property. It's investing, so you have to have something to invest. And we tend not to talk too much about how to get those funds to invest. Once you have them, you can use them for property. At the same time, you hear in lots of other places about how you don't particularly need money to invest in property. So it's great that you've given us an opportunity to talk about this and address it for people who perhaps are also a bit unsure. So I think there's an important distinction to be drawn between making money versus growing money. So generating the cash in the first place versus taking cash that you've already got and making it multiply and make more cash, getting a return on the money that you've already got. You can use property for both, but it's particularly well suited to the latter. It's best suited to growing your money. So you've got some cash, you put it into property, it makes you money every month and it grows over the long term. It's not going to make you rich overnight, but over the long term, when it comes to growing wealth that you've already got and compounding it and generating more wealth, property, we happen to think, is pretty hard to beat. You can use property for making money as well. So you'll hear a lot about things like lease options and rent to rent, ways of getting involved in property without having much of your own cash. And then things like joint ventures, which are ways of using other people's money that they've already got to make some money for yourself. Those are all perfectly possible and valid things to do. I'd say it's borderline about whether you'd call them investment, because really it's just creating an income stream, and that income stream happens to come from property. But if you do those things and you create that income stream and you've got more money coming in, then you can save that money up and then use property for its other purpose to grow that money that you've now got. That's one way of doing it. But getting the money together in the first place doesn't have to be generated from property. It can be generated from other things. So any kind of side business, any kind of extra income stream that you don't need to spend so you could save it up would do the job. By far the most common way of getting the money together is the really boring way though. It's just saving. And it is a really boring thing to do and a really difficult thing to do a lot of the time. For the vast majority of people who are now in property and quite well established, it didn't start out with having this huge amount of cash to go out and spend and build a big portfolio from day one. It came from saving up and foregoing things and living well within their means and having a pretty dull time of it for a few years to get that first deposit together and then be able to snowball it from there. We've talked about the snowball effect before, but often it's a case of starting very slow and it feels like you're never going to really get anywhere, but eventually it does build up and get faster and faster. If you are in a position where it's difficult for you to save, you're not able to save a large amount every month, so it takes you time to get that deposit together, that's where it becomes really important to preserve and to make the most of the funds that you've got. So if you're in a position where you're, say, in a high-paying job and you have a relatively frugal lifestyle and you're able to save up a deposit for a new property every year, then you don't need to worry too much about making the most of that capital in terms of using it again and again. You just buy one property every year. 10 years later, you're in a fantastic position. Nice and easy. Most people are going to fall somewhere in the middle, but some people are going to find it very difficult to save up beyond that first deposit. It's going to take them a very long time. So that's where you want to be doing things like recycling your deposit by adding value to a property, or investing in particularly high yielding properties so you can get that capital returned to you as quickly as possible and then use it again. Being aware of the amount of money that you have and are likely to have is therefore a really important determinant of the strategy that you select, because if you've got loads of cash but not a lot of time, it's a complete waste of effort for you to go around trying to add value to properties because you don't particularly need to. But if you have limited possibilities of raising more funds, then it's absolutely critical that you do that, and it would be daft for you to go around just buying something where there isn't the potential to add value. So you can make property work with all different levels of funds, you just need different strategies. And you can use property to generate those funds in the first place. But at the end of the day, it is property investment. You need to have money to invest. And whether you make that money through property or through some other means, it doesn't really matter. It's just something you need to do. It won't be the most fun part, but it's the part that everyone has to do. And you get through it and it's worth it.
So the thing is, Jay, saving may seem dull because it's slow, but it is predictable. You know roughly what you should be able to save every month if you budget correctly, and then you'll know by which date you'll be able to invest by. If you go down the property business route to raise funds, that may seem more attractive because you might get there faster, but you might not get there at all. It's not as predictable and it's a lot harder to achieve, although a lot of people out there who sell courses will try and make you think it's quite easy to do, but obviously their intention is to sell you courses. So beware of the noise and decide what's the best strategy for you. If you haven't got the time to create a side business through property or other means, then saving is going to be your best course of action. So next up we've got Helen from Essex, and she's got a question about limited company mortgages.
Hi Rob and Rob, my name's Helen and I'm from Essex. First of all, just to say I love the podcast. The information you give is fantastic and it's keeping me motivated to keep investing and keep thinking about investing and staying on top of what's going on. My question is about buy-to-let mortgages. I spoke to my broker today and he said that he's seen all this before with limited company and he's had lots of people in the past that used a limited company to invest, and then all the lenders pulled out of the market. So they were left with like no or very few products to choose from. But then he also said it looks like the tax changes and the incentive to use limited companies now look like they're here to stay. And I just wondered what your thoughts are about this, because this is a perspective that I've never come across before. Usually everybody's saying, yeah, buy through a limited company. It's quite a good idea if it suits your strategy. So very interested to know what you think.
Helen, get rid of your broker. Seriously. That's really, really rubbish advice. Nearly 80% of mortgages in the buy-to-let market are limited company products. 80%. So if lenders are going to walk away from that huge chunk of the market and just leave lending to the 1 in 5 people left, then they're going to be fighting for scraps. And they're going to have to find another business model. But that's the thing. This is their business model, lending. So this isn't going to go away. What I believe your broker's done is he's confused lending around the last cycle where people bought commercial property through limited companies and portfolios through limited companies and got commercial mortgages. Many of those products were withdrawn after the crash, but these are completely different things. And if your broker doesn't understand this, I'll go back to my original opening line, is change your broker. Because for anyone, your mortgage broker is a critical part of your team. They need to understand what's happening in the market. And if they can't see the bigger picture and they don't understand what's going on, then how can you have confidence in the advice that they're giving you? So not all brokers are equal. Just because they're qualified doesn't mean they're good. So ask around, whether it's at meetups or through the Property Hub forum, however you want to do it, but ask for recommendations. And make sure those recommendations are of brokers who work with investors, who work with landlords, for the majority of their time, preferably. Yes, there are lots of other brokers out there, but they spend most of their time working with owner-occupiers and do a little bit of buy-to-let. Now, they will all tell you that they're experienced in buy-to-let because it's not going to be in their interest to tell you otherwise. So you need to do a little bit more research and work a little bit harder and ask for more recommendations and almost interview your broker to see if you want them as part of your team. So to answer your question directly, is the limited company mortgage market going to disappear? No, not anytime soon. What may happen in the future is that all products are opened up to limited companies and that we stop calling them limited company mortgages. But in terms of access to mortgages through a limited company, that's certainly not going to go away anytime soon.
Well, there you go. 2 more questions answered for Helen and Jay. What about you? Is it time to ask your question? Give us a call on 013 808 00035 or head on over to propertyhub.net/ask and maybe it'll be your question that we're answering next week. Before then, though, we'll be back with the Property Podcast on Thursday, so we'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.